Hey, you know how we do. The black media has a long-standing tradition of our own. We never miss an opportunity to take a dump on the dominant society's holidays. We got our own holy days. We show no love for theirs. And for those of you who have chosen to partake in the festivities, well, don't worry. I'll let you get back to stuffing your face or watching the Thanksgiving Day football game in a minute. But first, you're going to get some of this black truth. White supremacy may take a holiday, but black empowerment never does. Right now, we need to be getting ready with the next offensive for all of these bootlicks out there. We use James Clyburn as a case study because he's emblematic of the problem of all of these black misleaders that white society and white supremacy has placed over us. James Clyburn is like a putrid little octopus. He's got a number of arms, though rotted and weakening they may be, but not nearly fast enough. I'm going to do a brief recap of my last video essay where I was exposing the Clyburn crime family's little syndicate. We start off with James Clyburn's daughter, Mignon Clyburn. Now, in case you didn't know, Barack Obama appointed Mignon Clyburn to be an FCC commissioner during his administration. When Trump got elected, Mignon Clyburn found herself unceremoniously without a job, so she started her own consulting company like so many other politicians do. And of course, the very media and communications cartel companies who she had benefited during her time on the FCC, they came running to give her a bunch of do-nothing contracts and jobs. Basically, this is the equivalent of a corporate pension. That's how bribery works in the U.S. The politicians and the regulators who do the bidding of the corporations, when you leave office, you start a consulting company, and those same corporations decide to give you contracts, which is just basically money for nothing. But this money for nothing, this corporate pension track that she thought she was on, well, that soon changed about 5 months ago when Joe Biden got the nomination with the help of Mignon Clyburn's father, James Clyburn. All of a sudden, you had companies, white media companies, communication companies tripping over themselves to give Mignon Clyburn some sort of place on their corporate board. Lionsgate named her to their board of directors. A communications company, Ring Central, appointed her to their board of directors just 2 weeks ago. So all these white media companies can't wait to give James Clyburn's daughter a corporate job on their board soon as they found out that Biden had gotten the nomination, because everybody knew that because James Clyburn had given him an endorsement, his daughter was going to get an administration post, which is exactly what happened. One of Clyburn's many proteges, Louisiana Congressman Cedric Richmond, who was also head of the Congressional Bootlick Caucus, Black Caucus, up until recently, this guy has also been given a Biden administration job, Director of Public Engagement, which basically means he's going to be playing around between the White House and Congress. But you see, this is what James Clyburn's been up to, at least for some of his flunkies, but there seems to be trouble in paradise, though. Joe Biden's not even inaugurated. He's only just now begun announcing who this or that cabinet position is going to be going to, but James Clyburn's already saying that he's not happy that Biden isn't appointing more black people to cabinet positions. Well, we know what that means. When Clyburn's talking about black people, he ain't talking about black folks. What he actually means is his flunkies. Clyburn's going, you need to be putting more of my flunkies, more of my little loyal minions in the cabinet positions. And we all know why it is that cabinet positions are so important. Cabinet posts are where the government contracts get doled out. That's where the government contracts come from. It's where the federal dollars get handed out. Clyburn wants people who are loyal to him in those positions. Because after all, you can't get any federal contracts or federal money from a daughter who's doing nothing more than advising Biden about the FCC. Sure, that's a make-work job for Mignon Clyburn. But the thing about it is she doesn't have her hand on the bag. And Cedric Richmond, he can go ahead and stick out his chest and say, I'm carrying a message from my my boss, over in the plantation house, the White House. to Capitol Hill, he can go ahead and play that game. But the thing is, Cedric Richmond doesn't have his hand on the bag either. And that's what this means to Clyburn. Clyburn wants his flunkies to get cabinet posts so that they'll have access to the bag. That's what this is supposed to be about. Oh, and he's not happy that Biden isn't doing this. All that help I gave you, all that work I put in for you, and I thought, well, surely you're going to put some of my flunkies in them cabinet positions so I can get paid. You see, when you look at this, the make work patronage job for Mignon Clyburn, floating another do-nothing job for Cedric Richmond, Clyburn mad as hell that Biden isn't giving his flunkies cabinet positions so that they can get the bag for him. Well, what we see is when Clyburn was telling Meet the Press, oh, what do I want from Biden? I don't want nothing. Well, it turns out that Clyburn's having to be forced to come out and say, yeah, I want something all right. Gee, whatever happened to I don't want nothing? Whatever happened to that? Seems Clyburn wants a hell of a lot. But Joe Biden seems reluctant to come through on any of this. You see, that's the reason why I called this evening's video address Benefit of the Clout. Because all these clout-chasing bootlicks, fakers, frauds, phonies, fools, suck-ups, sellouts, and simps, what they're finding out is they're nowhere near as influential or powerful as the white media made them out to be. Because you see, if Clyburn really is as powerful and influential as the white media has been saying, then why is he having to say anything at all to Biden? Why isn't Biden just rushing to install as many Clyburn loyalists in cabinet positions as he can? Why does Clyburn have to say anything? It's because A, these white Democrats don't respect Clyburn. Clyburn may have convinced himself that he's an honorary member of the oppressor class. But the white powers that be, they're not fooled at all. Clyburn is nothing more than their pet Negro, and they want him to understand that. This is them sending him a message. Nigger, don't go overplaying your hand. And why would they have that attitude toward him? That they're giving him the not so subtle message, don't go overplaying your hand. Why is that? Is because of reason number B. No matter how the white media tries to spin it, Clyburn failed to get the black voters in South Carolina to do his bidding. The white Democrat leadership, they can see that South Carolina did not vote for Biden as much as they were voting against Trump. And the rubber really hit the road, or rather the crap really hit the fan, with the failed campaign of Jamie Harrison. His campaign defeat really showed that the emperor, the would-be kingmaker, had no clothes. Jamie Harrison raised $100 million. He was whipping Lindsey Graham in the polls, whipping him in fundraising. Lindsey Graham's popularity had taken a hit in recent years. It was so bad that, as I showed you guys on my Twitter page, Graham was reduced to begging for money and sympathy on Fox News and any other white media outlet that would have him. I mean, he was just too pathetic. Yet in the end, Lindsey Graham managed to pull out a win. He handily spanked Jamie Harrison. Wasn't no nail biter. Wasn't no, well, we should have a recount. Imagine that, $100 million Jamie Harrison had at his disposal. And he had the endorsement and the full-throated support of the most powerful black politician in the country, says the white media. And with all that going for him, Jamie Harrison failed to get any more than 43% of the vote. He could not win even with all that going for him. And the real big gun was supposed to be James Clyburn's endorsement. So what does that tell us about James Clyburn's alleged influence that the white media claims he's got with black voters? What it tells us is that this was just another white media lie. Well, the DNC are smart enough not to buy into their own press. All the white media fairy tales about James Clyburn's influence, that was meant to credentialize him in the eyes of black people. It's like Malcolm X said, the white media happens to have a huge societal imprint. They're everywhere. They got the TV stations, the radio stations, the newspapers, the billboards. They have the ability and the power to create black icons, quote unquote. They can create them out of whole cloth, or at least they can attempt to by just carpet bombing us with headlines and TV pieces and billboards and just whenever this person gets mentioned, the white media says icon, civil rights icon, influential politician, powerful kingmaker. They just keep saying that over and over again. Not that the white media believes it. The white Democrats damn sure don't believe it, but they want to see if black people believe it. This is part of a sophisticated system of control. This is how it works. Look what the white media's been trying the last several years. They've been trying to take their hand-picked flunkies from D. Ray McKesson to Kamala Harris to Tarana Burke. And they've been trying to take these fakers, frauds, phonies, and fools and see if they can legitimize them and credentialize them. We're going to give them a ton of positive press and say that black people love them. And if we say that, these niggers will go for it because they're simple-minded and stupid, right? I mean, hell, if you're willing to sell your soul for a goddamn fish fry, then you'll fall for just about anything now, won't you? Yeah, except things ain't been going so smoothly as what they're finding. Oh, they're still pumping out the white media propaganda. They're still trying to prop up and trying to polish the pile of crap that they call their black flunkies, these black stooges. They're still trying to prop these clowns up. But what they're finding out is all this white media propaganda for these bootlicks is wearing thin. It seems that these guys are nowhere near as influential as the white media try to present them. It seems like black folks ain't buying what they're selling anymore. At least that's the beginning. That's where the trend is going. The trend is certainly there now. Clyburn can see it. That's why he was all mad when he was talking to Axios. Take a look at my last video. Very first thing you see, I show you the video. I show you the interview where he's sitting there all mad. We couldn't discipline ourselves. No, what happened was black folks are disciplining themselves. You see, discipline, as the military described it, is when you put the organization's goals ahead of your own personal desires. Jim Clyburn's desire is for personal power and money for himself. And you got the black grassroots saying, no, our goal for tangibles for the group, that comes first. The days of Clyburn putting his own petty, pathetic, treasonous interests ahead of the good of the group, those days are over. And that's why he was mad as hell. We couldn't discipline ourselves. And just a little linguistic lesson here. Merriam-Webster defines the verb definition of discipline as to punish or penalize for the sake of enforcing obedience and perfecting moral character. Another definition under verb is to bring a group under control. So when he says discipline, and that's what I mean when I say he's mad, because what he was saying was, I couldn't control these niggers. I couldn't do that. They were out here saying defund the police. I couldn't stop them from saying these things. That's what he was really saying. The white power certainly picked up on that. It was like, that's what we put you out here for. We put you out here to control these niggers, and you couldn't control them. What the hell do we need you for? James Clyburn is mad because he's scared. He's scared, and as I explained to you, anger and fear are flip sides of the same coin. When somebody's sitting here hopping mad, you need to be asking, what is that person scared of? Because most reactions of anger are rooted in fear. And what is Clyburn afraid of? What he's clearly afraid of is that now that it seems his influence and power over the black community, his ability to discipline, or rather control, black people seems to be waning. He's looking at these white folks now, and they're looking at him and going, what do we need you for? He's scared that they're about to give him the boot. He knows how this story ends. What they believe in is white power does not believe in the tools being able to leave the game clean. They don't. When they're through with the tool, they break the tool. So Clyburn's got to give himself a new lease on life. Because he understands that when they break him, they're going to break his daughter right along with them, going to break Cedric Richmond. They're going to break the whole damn lot of them. Oh, it's not just going to be a matter of the phone stops ringing for Clyburn. It's going to be a matter of, okay, now where are those trumped up charges we going to put on Clyburn? Maybe we'll Me Too him and put him in a prison cell for rape or something. We got to go ahead and put some charges on you right quick. So that's why Clyburn's scared right now. He's angry because he's afraid. He understands that if he cannot make himself of maximum use, if he cannot show the white powers that be, you need me. I have the unique ability to corral these dumb niggers and get them to do what you want. If he cannot do that, they don't need him. They don't need him. They're going to break him. So he's scared. And that fear, that terror is manifesting itself through anger. That's why Biden's deciding, well, maybe I want to put some black folks in some cabinet positions, or maybe I don't. Oh, they're going to make Clyburn beg for the very things that he thought would be givens. Oh, ain't it supposed to be a given? Not supposed to get these things? I mean, after all, I done told all these lies for you and carried all this water. And they're looking and going, who the hell are you, nigger? Yeah, you see, it's not just all of the black voters and those black organizations and those black flunkies and supporters who decided that they would go all in, that they would do the most for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They're not the only ones who are getting that buyer's remorse. I mean, you just look at the last few video essays that I've been posting. These are not just some small, obscure folk from nowhere. There's a bunch of black folk who are running around now saying, we supported Joe Biden, and now the dude's showing us his behind. We can't get our phone calls returned. We're being completely and thoroughly ignored. The dude ain't saying nothing. Yeah, what did you think was going to happen? Yeah, these fools who are finding out the hard way what the black media's been telling them all along. These white folks are telling Clyburn that his failure to get the black vote to support Jamie Harrison, that's all the proof they need that Clyburn clearly is not any sort of kingmaker in the eyes of black people. Oh yeah, he's supposed to discipline black folks because white power has already disciplined, or rather buck broken, this fool a long time ago. Clyburn will be some sort of pimp. Calling himself snapping and biting and yelling at the black voters, he should be instead getting on his hands and knees and saying, look, we're going to do what you say. We understand what happened. Here's a matter of, he's telling black folks, you need to support my position, sounding just like Obama, doesn't he? Y'all need to get out there and save my legacy. This is about preserving my legacy. Yeah, these white Democrats are letting Clyburn know, all right, you already should be eyeing the exit. You couldn't get the job done. The fact that Jamie Harrison could not win with all the advantages he had, yeah, it wasn't that he didn't have enough money, and it wasn't that he didn't have enough visibility. What it came down to was there simply wasn't anybody on the ground in South Carolina who could influence black voters to think that they need to go all out to support Jamie Harrison. That's what was missing. But this is not to say that Clyburn is not trying to find a way to get his protege, Jamie Harrison, some sort of Democratic Party position. Tom Perez, who's the current empty suit in charge of the Democratic National Committee, he's about to resign the position soon. And the defeated Jamie Harrison says that he's interested in taking Tom Perez's place. But then again, this is not news. This is nothing new. Back in 2016, James Clyburn was endorsing Jamie Harrison heavy to be the DNC chair back then. 4 years ago, when Donald Trump won the election, you had Negro Jim Clyburn saying, well, I got this I got this good guy here, Jamie Harrison, and he goes to a number of my fish fries, and he kisses my behind extra sweet, and because of that, he needs to be the DNC chair. Why, this young man, he's just a genius to be. I tell you, genius to be. He's got the vision, he's got the right attitude, and he don't ask no kind of questions. This is the guy who we need. That's what Clyburn was saying just a few weeks after Trump had won the election. That Jamie Harrison had the vision to rebuild the Democratic Party. The vision to rebuild the Democratic Party. See, the problem with these black bootlicks is they're all over the place because that's what happens when you start lying. What you say changes depending on who's standing in front of you or what time of day that you say it. Because just a few weeks ago, we had no less than Jason Johnson, and this fool was saying the Democrats don't need to do any soul searching. Well, look, either the party needs to be rebuilt or it doesn't need to do anything. Which one is it? The bootlicks can't make up their minds because what they say changes on what they think white daddy wants to hear right now. If you're in the position of James Clyburn and you're desperately trying to get as many of your flunkies and loyalists and your own kiss butt chorus into positions so they can float you some money, then you say, well, the party needs to rebuild and you need to rebuild with some of my suck-ups. Or on the other hand, if you're Jason Johnson and you're desperately trying to make sure that the white power doesn't get displeased with you, what you tell them is, y'all don't need to change anything at all. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Just please don't fire me. You need more black people in the press corps, please. This is what the black bootlicks come up with. They do not even think about black people because that's not who they're thinking about. They're thinking about themselves. They're going to be the head Negro in charge. In charge of what? In charge of you and me. Or at least that's what the plan was. So this is what's going on with Jamie Harrison. James Clyburn, he's running hither, thither, and yon, trying to figure out how he can get Biden, the DNC, Nancy Pelosi. I got to get some jobs for some of my flunkies. I got to get them in the machine plugged in somehow. That's what James Clyburn's trying to do. And a large part of that happens to be he's got to be able to demonstrate, at least to some of the junior and the freshman and incoming amateur aspiring black bootlicks, he's got to show that he can get them some sort of job. That's the thing about these bootlicks. They'll sell black people up the river just for a steady paycheck. For the little wannabe pretend powerful black bootlick like James Clyburn, he's got to be able to demonstrate to all of the aspiring wannabe bootlicks out there, the roly-polies and the Angela Ryes with lettuce and tomatoes on the side, and the rest of these fools, he's got to be able to demonstrate that on at least some level, if you kiss his behind and tell the world that his butt smells like roses instead of embalming fluid, then hopefully you can get a job. Like James Clyburn, all he's got to do is make a phone call, you can get a job. That's that crap that low-down Willie Brown was doing in San Francisco. That's what these clowns have to be able to show. Well, I can't really get you no, but I could put in a phone call. I just make one phone call and you's gonna be a somebody. That's what James Clyburn has to demonstrate. That's what he's doing right now. He's trying to show that you have to kiss my ring and kiss my behind because I can get you a job. And what's happening is, even though the white media on the one hand points out that Biden would not be president without the black vote, Biden doesn't seem to be very concerned about that. He doesn't seem very grateful at all because he's not. Far as he's concerned, well, I'll go ahead and give you niggers a pat on the back one time, but that's all you're going to get. Just one, you niggers did me a good turn and I got your back and don't you ask me for nothing now. Don't go making a nuisance of yourself. Oh, you think I owe you something? Don't go overplaying your hand, niggers. That's what Joe Biden's saying. That's what Nancy Pelosi's saying. That's what Kamala Harris is saying. As I've long said, being a bootlick is a career path that doesn't come with a retirement plan, though these days it's a career path that doesn't even come with a career. Even if the blatantly unqualified Jamie Harrison does get handed a token patronage DNC chairmanship, we've seen this before. The white Democrats, they'll send his raggedy, flabby behind packing quick, just like they did Donna Brazile when she had the job for all of a hot minute. Being the chairman of the DNC, that is not a post that you can use as a launch pad or a springboard to some sort of high political office. It's the freaking end of the road. That's what a DNC chairmanship is. Ask Howard Dean if you doubt me. Ask Donna Brazile if you doubt me. But when you fail to actually attain some sort of high office like Howard Dean did, when you crash and burn in your election, well, the DNC chairmanship is basically it's the post of last resort. About the only guy I can think of who actually made it out of the DNC chairman dungeon was Terry McAuliffe. But then again, Terry McAuliffe, he happened to be one of the patrons or benefactors, whatever you want to call it. He basically was one of the suck-ups to the Clintons. So it really wasn't a matter of he climbed out of the DNC chairmanship as much as he was a flunky and a suck-up to the Clintons, and they went ahead and gave him the golden nod. Terry McAuliffe was part of the Clinton super delegate machine they were putting together. Same as Debbie Wasserman Schultz, there's another one for you. Unless you're a Clinton devotee, being the DNC chairman, that's not a springboard to higher office. That's the freaking end of the line. That's just the reality about it. Now, as much as the white powers that be would love to throw wrinkled up Clyburn overboard now, the big problem that they have happens to be there is a newly invigorated and newly belligerent black empowerment on the march. And that being the case, they ain't got anybody out there who can even calm some of us down, much less all of us. Clyburn's influence is waning, but at least he still has something resembling influence left with the older set and the hood rat set and the low information set. So they're going ahead and calling him a civil rights leader because they got to prop him up to some degree, however reluctantly, mainly because they don't have anybody to replace him. That's the main problem that they got. They don't really have anybody set to replace his behind. Oh, sure, they could put somebody else in there, but it doesn't matter. They don't have any influence either. So all this garbage about Clyburn, civil rights leader, what they're doing is they're taking the same script that they used for John I Spill Blood and Selma Lewis, and they're just cutting and copying and pasting it for James Clyburn. You have never heard them calling Clyburn a civil rights leader. What the hell march has he led? What demonstration has he led? Not a damn thing. That's the reason why after Jamie Harrison crashed and burned and Clyburn's sitting here having to do some quick talking to these white Democrats that he answers to, his Democrat masters, he was sitting there saying, defund the police cost Jamie Harrison the election, and then talking about, well, you know, I used to be involved in civil rights, and that's not what we did back in the 60s, and we wasn't out there sloganizing. That's why he all of a sudden remembered that he was part of one of those do-nothing student committees back in the day. He and John I Spill Blood and Selma Lewis, both those clowns back 50 plus years ago were plotting how they were going to use the gullible, dumb black baby boomers who basically anybody could get over on those fools. And get over they did. They were going to use these morons as their power base, as their foundation, as their constituency. And it worked. So that's what they were doing back in the freaking 60s. And because of that, James Clyburn's looking at his position today and trying to figure out how he can run the exact same play. Oh, we got all these black folks protesting and such. I'm going to remind them I used to do some pretend phony baloney protesting back in the day. And, you know, when I was back then, we didn't really antagonize white supremacy and things worked out all right for me. And the white media is trying to figure out, are there any more pork chop preachers, any more pulpit pimps? Are there any more Creflo Pimpadollars? Are there any more TD Snakes? Are there any more of these clowns, any more of these Bible-thumping bootlicks who are going to be able to have any influence with black folks whatsoever? This, by the way, is a tactic that is as old as the doggone Romans. And it was and remains a very popular tactic, particularly with the Catholic Church. Part of what the Catholic Church would do in nations where Catholicism would take root, they would be sending in their interlopers and trying to find out, is there anyone who this group here respects? Anybody who they'll listen to? Some fool who we can co-opt? We'll bring them some wine. We'll bring them some white women or something, and we'll see if we can get this idiot to be our puppet. Is it somebody who these dumb Negroes will actually listen to? That's an old tactic. Ain't nothing new about it. It's an old one. So you got Clyburn on one hand, and hopefully you got some bought and paid for black preachers on the other hand who'll do anything for a fish fry. You give them some free food and they'll do anything. They think they're in high cotton at that point. And this is what the white media is trying to do, to prop them up a little bit longer till they think of something else. But we're making it very difficult for them to do that. The black bootlick's position has become more and more precarious, being shaken to its very foundations. And as a result, that buffer group who white supremacy has between the black grassroots and themselves is starting to crack, starting to give way. And what they've seen this summer is, once these bootlicks are no longer considered to be an obstacle, well, the grassroots are going to be reaching out for white power, and it ain't going to be to give them a pat on the back. But white power is not about to abandon its buck-breaking, boot-licking strategy. In fact, they're going to double and triple down on it. I posted for you just today on my Twitter page how you got this woman, some clown from Louisiana called Linda Thomas-Greenfield, and Joe Biden just appointed her as UN ambassador. And when this woman took to the lectern to give Joe Biden thanks for these butter biscuits, She said, and I kid you not, she wants to replace gunboat diplomacy with gumbo diplomacy. And then the woman was rambling on and on about how gumbo is so important and, well, you make a gumbo by putting this and that together, the Holy Trinity. And she's this is some doggone step and fetch it talk here. Unfreaking believable. Like that old song about beans and cornbread had a fight. That kind of garbage. Gumbo, you go down to Louisiana, especially South Louisiana, where you got them good old boys killing black folks at will, and you got these immigrants coming in, like Cynthia Gwynn, New Orleans City Councilwoman Cindy Gwynn. You see these folk who are up here attacking black folks left, right, and center. You got the freaking gumbo capital of the world, and I don't see anybody breaking down barriers or connecting with people. If anything, they are as balkanized and segregated as they've ever been, especially where black people are concerned. But this is what this woman's talking about. So what does that tell you? Who's her real audience? Her real audience happens to be the white DNC. But more importantly than that, they chose this woman because she's a freaking flunky, a front woman. What the hell else can she be? She ain't got the sense that God gave a goat. Can you imagine what it is that the other ambassadors and heads of state around the world think when they see this woman take to the lectern, and she's not talking about America's future defense posture, she's not talking about America's role in the world, instead she's talking about gumbo and talking about food bringing people together. They're looking and going, man, this is a bunch of flunkies and suck-ups that Biden's got, at least the black ones. And that's the entire point. The point of the bootlicks in the political arena is to present black people to the world as nothing more than a bunch of modern-day slaves who deserve to be mistreated, people who should be abused, people who should be oppressed. If you don't have Obama blatantly enforcing that oppression and making excuses for attacking us, then what you have are other idiots who are so buffoonish, so moronic, so stupid, so blatantly asinine that you look and go, well, hell, who the hell would respect somebody like that? That's the point of the black bootlick. And it's pointless for anyone to be so stupid as to ask, well, hopefully will they do something else? Maybe they can do something. No, they can't. When you're a bootlick, your only marketable skill is kissing white supremacists' behinds. Buck dancing and dance like Roly-Poly Martin, dancing a jig and acting a fool for this or that white supremacist. That's his only marketable skill. And sitting here just being so, Mr. Biden, I want to thank you, and let's talk about gumbo. That doggone mammy lit Willie Lynch chip she has in her empty noggin, that thing kicked in full power, and she's sitting here. All she was missing was a doggone head wrap and an apron, and talking about, let me make you some gumbo, Mr. Biden, Mr. Biden. Ooh, I just love cooking for these white folks. That's the only thing that this Greenfield clown didn't say. I mean, for God's sake, the only damn thing she was missing was the head wrap and an apron. That is disgraceful. But you better believe the white media is going to bring her on, and because the white media always loves a good joke, especially when the joke walks on 2 feet, they're going to be having her on their shows so that they can have her repeating that shtick. They love what they heard. Oh, yes, you have presented yourself to us as a buffoonish, non-threatening Negro. You have shown that you don't have the sense that God gave a cantaloupe. We'd like to bring you on for a segment, hell, a couple of segments, so you can go ahead and tell America that the only thing your dumb step and fetch it man-tan Moreland behind can think about is gumbo. Ooh, I just loves me some food. This is who Biden appointed as his UN ambassador. Obviously, she's there just so that they can have somebody that they can poke fun at and laugh at and jeer at. And when that stops being amusing, when people look and go, well, sir, this woman's stupidity is kind of reflecting on the administration, then it'll be time for Biden to say, well, we're going to put somebody else in there. Thanks for your months of hard work and get the hell out of here. And of course, there'll be James Clyburn showing up going, Cedric Richmond, he's paid his dues. Can't he be UN ambassador next? But you notice how this lowbrow, infantile, asinine thought pattern repeats itself with all of these bootlicks for white power. James Clyburn and his annual fish fry, because apparently that's he thinks that that's the level that black people, especially black voters in South Carolina, are on. And this Linda Greenfield woman and her utter obsession with Cajun cuisine. I mean, for God's sake, these bastards shouldn't be in political office. They might as well open a restaurant. They can call it Dumb and Dumber. But the truth of the matter is, this is really not something that I can get too humorous about. And it's probably because this is not really a joke. This is deadly serious. The entire point of the bootlick is to be our spokesperson, to be a black face to sell white supremacy's white lies. And you better believe that this Greenfield Thomas woman and Cedric Richmond and Minion Clyburn, no matter what black people say about how we're being abused, how we're being marginalized, how we're being deprived, how we're being systematically shut out of all opportunities, they'll be the main ones saying, no, there's been this and that. And, why, there's all sorts of stuff happening. Y'all just can't see it. That's all. This good stuff's happening behind the scenes where you can't see it and you can't benefit from it. That's their job. Their job is to be the black face going ahead and lying and saying that black people are just fine while we're being slowly and surely suffocated and economically strangled to death. That's their job. You will always be able to have some black person you put in front of the camera saying nothing wrong here. Why, obviously there will always be a few poor folks, but things are better now. Why? We have some phony baloney made up numbers that we just got through getting from some of our flunkies over at the Department of the Treasury or whatever, saying that black folks are doing great and the administration takes full credit for that and vote for us in 2022 and 2024 and whatever. That's what their job is. That's what they're there for. Their entire mission is that. That's the purpose that the bootlick serves. Because every time the black folks point out that how we are being completely and thoroughly oppressed and abused, the bootlicks are quick to either try to shout us down, drown us out, come up with some half-baked joke, try to make something humorous out of it. Oh, let's talk about some infotainment. That's the bootlick's job. Anything but black empowerment. Get us off the subject. Oh, and by the way, if you think that this Linda Greenfield woman's completely reprehensible, just vomitous bootlick, I mean, the way what she did was absolutely inexcusable and unforgivable to do that. And if you think that was bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. This is just a preview of coming attractions. Because you see, with all the pressure that the black grassroots has put on the bootlicks and on white power and threatening them like this, they're going to have to double and triple down with all the buffoonery and coonery. Now, they're going to have to triple down with it. They're going to have to be coming out with some just off-the-wall stuff where you're going to look and go, whoa, man, just this 21st century minstrel show. That's what they're going to be hitting us with next. You better believe that the bootlicks are going to become completely shameless. Don't be surprised if you see Mignon Clyburn, don't be surprised if you see her doing an interview for the white media wearing a watermelon suit and spitting seeds out of her behind. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if you see Cedric Richmond and he decides to pull a chicken wing out of his coat pocket. Don't be surprised any of this stuff. They're going to be going overboard with taking abuse with a smile. They're going to be going overboard with just doing the most off-the-wall, subservient, just plantation garbage you ever saw. The buck dancing is going to be hitting a brand new low because they have to. They have to establish a new in the gutter baseline for what constitutes bootlicking because they're trying to move the needle. They have to push back hard as hell because that's what we've done. We have moved the needle and now they realize they better push hard as hell to move it, hopefully so far toward white supremacy and bootlicking that hopefully they can gain back some of the ground that we've taken from them. That's the entire point. But we've got to keep the pressure on the bastards. Every oppressive regime since time immemorial has always put up the biggest, baddest, boldest, loudest front just before they collapse. It's been that way throughout human history. When these bastards are on their last legs, that's when they're going to become thrashing and throwing around the most. That's when they're going to be screaming and yelling the most, when they're about ready to keel over. These bootlicks ain't got no damn influence, not the way that they used to think they did. The black baby boomers are dying off, and what's happening is Gen X, the millennials, and the post-millennials, what's happening is we're all getting on code. Enough of us anyway, not all of us, but then again, that's okay. There's never been an example in human history of everyone getting on code. All we need is a critical mass of the black folks who are going to get things done. That's all we need. The black bootlicks for the white media, many of them, the ones who haven't been hiding their heads in the sand, they've been forced to have to start talking like us. They've been forced to have to come to terms with the tide of history that we now represent. That's the reason why you got people like Clyburn all mad with wind in his jaws and snapping and biting like an old mangy mutt. It was all just defund the police, stop with the sloganizing. Yeah, these guys are feeling the heat. And we're the ones who are laying the heat on their raggedy behinds. And we're not letting up. And Clyburn's scared? Good, he should be scared. He has made himself of absolutely no use to black empowerment. Hence, we don't give a damn what white power does to him. We could care less about how white power mistreats him, throws him out in the cold. Who gives a damn? If he's of no use to us, then that means he doesn't need to be here. So when the white media tells you that James Clyburn's name carries weight with who? Ask Jamie Harrison how much weight James Clyburn's name carries. Better yet, ask Joe Biden. Now, before I end this evening address, there is something that I do think needs to be said. And it is something that is said nowhere near enough, certainly not by myself. I'd like to say that if something is understood, then it doesn't need to be said, but that's not exactly true. Because the truth cannot just be the truth, it must also be told. And the truth that needs to be told is a hearty, absolutely heartfelt thank you from myself to you, the black grassroots. The reason that I'm here, the reason that I do what I do, the reason that we have been effective, the reason that the truth is still the truth and still being spoken is not because of me, it's because of you. You guys are the force multiplier, but you're also the life's blood behind this. You do not get anywhere near the credit that you deserve, and the large part of that happens to be we have not had the impact on the culture yet that we should have. But all of us have made big sacrifices. All of us have put in a lot of effort. All of us have given a lot. And that's because this evil, sick, vile system of white supremacy has taken everything. So that being the case, we got to go all in on this. And the most important thing, the most gratifying part of this is when you have that moment when you got so many people who gravitate toward what it is that you're saying, but more importantly, who act on what it is that you're saying, that tells you and it tells the whole world, we're not alone. You can be the most eloquent speaker that God ever put on the earth, but if nobody listens to you, you might as well not exist. I have always understood and never taken you guys for granted. I do not take the people who listen to this message for granted. It's part of the reason why you don't see me trying to figure out new and inventive ways how I can trade on you guys and get me some sort of white media job. Well, I need to do this. No, I don't play games like that. And the reason why is the trust and the support that you have given to me has been absolutely sacrosanct in my eyes. Because you didn't have to do it. There is no law that says that you have to. Damn sure no law that says you have to do it for over a decade. 13 years ago, when this little experiment in black empowerment began, what passed for black discourse was a whole bunch of Kundalini energy and people who were basically fetishizing history without ever putting it into practice. But mostly what you had was people talking about why you can't get a date on Friday night. That was the low guttural level of black discourse when this began. Talk about feeling like a voice in the wilderness. That's exactly what it was. What happened was that the only people for the longest time, because of the white media and because of our own dysfunction at a group level, what had happened was, and we have to be honest about this, the lowest common denominator, with a hell of a lot of help from the dominant society, had managed to exercise and exert disproportionate influence over the black community. And as we all know, it's far easier to drag quality down to the level of crap than it is to raise crap to the level of quality. And we have to be honest about that. It takes no skills and no brains to fornicate mindlessly, and that's exactly what you had a lot of these fools basically focusing the black community towards. A whole bunch of infotainment and a whole bunch of your baby mama and talking about whose crotch is more important and beefing for no reason. There was no discipline. There was no intelligence in black discourse at that time. That's not to say that there was no intelligence among the black grassroots, among the black masses. There was plenty of intelligence there, but it had no voice. Certainly not a voice loud enough to be heard, not one that could permeate through the noise. And so we began our effort. I remember those initial broadcasts that Jason Black and I conducted together, where you would have something like 120 people who would actually listen to it. More, of course, would listen to it afterwards. But for the live broadcast, 120, if in fact it took time to get to that level. Start off with a couple dozen, and then it built and built and grew and grew. But the thing about it is, we understood something that a lot of folks didn't understand. This fight was not going to be won in a single day or a single year or a single moment. It was going to be won over the course of years. And what would make the difference between defeat and victory would be persistence, but not just ours alone. It was going to be the persistence of us all. There's a number of thought leaders for this black media. There's a number of people who have been making their contributions. And this thing has taken root, but it also has to be nurtured, because the bad guys, they still are holding a lot of trump cards. And they would like to take this tree of black empowerment that's taken root, and before this thing can become the mighty redwood that it needs to be, they're like, well, go ahead and get that backhoe or get some shovels. We need to uproot this thing now. And you know who the fools are who they want holding the shovels? The James Clyburns. And they want the KRS-2s, the Toronto Burks, and the Roly-Poly Martins, and the Linda Greenfields, and the Kamala Harrises, and I could be here till 3 a.m. Sometimes it feels as if we got a hell of a lot more traitors than true believers. Sometimes it feels like that, but all I got to do is look at the support that I get from you, the grassroots, and it reminds me, no. The people who the white media bangs the drum to try to bring attention to, they're basically speaking only for themselves. They're speaking for themselves and a small cadre of fellow bootlicks and suck-ups who white power has given some crumbs to. But we have demonstrated when we crushed Kamala Harris in a single moment and continue to crush her, and we force these guys to a position where they can't even speak about the issues that we put in front of them because they're terrified to. We've put their backs to the wall, but what's important here is we must hold them to the wall. It is difficult to do this. Please don't go kidding yourself that this is fun or easy. Facing up to the reality of the condition that our people are in, and to make sure that you tell black folks every day this situation must change, that is hard to do. It's draining to do. It is not easy and it's not fun. Seeing that you got a whole bunch of clowns that are fighting against the very thing that you need to survive. And there's a number of black folks who easily get pulled off course. A lot of black folks who seem far more interested in being off code than on code. That is not an easy thing to get up the next day and say, but I'm going to keep pushing forward. That's not easy to do. Speaking to you guys is gratifying. Speaking to you happens to be invigorating. Speaking to you gives me the strength to continue speaking to you and speaking up for our people. But do not ever kid yourself and think, oh, and it's also a walk in the park too. No, it's not. You want to know why? Because fighting for your survival is rarely, if ever, fun. It damn sure ain't fun in our case. Ain't nothing fun about this. But that is not to say that there have not been new family members and friends made along the way. It's times like this that we find out what the hell we're made of. And we found out that we are stronger than we thought that we were. This is what we have been fighting for. And the fact that you have been here, I got to give you thanks for that. Whatever it is you want to try to congratulate me for, to try to attribute to me, it is as much your effort as mine. It is as much a tribute to what you have done. It is as much your achievement as it is mine. And for that, I thank you. Now, of course, there is no way that I can adequately give you thanks for what it is that you've done, but that's certainly no excuse not to do it at all. I'll be the first one to tell you that I don't give thanks to my B-1 brigadiers anywhere near as much as you deserve. And that's certainly something that I need to work on, and will. And finally, I'll close by reminding everyone that our holy day season is upon us. It's when we have a number of birthdays and ascension dates for not just our foundational Black American, descendant of American slaves, survivors of slavery in America, whatever names you want to use, family right here, but also our extended family from around the world, the master teachers in particular, the people who have made those huge contributions to our knowledge of self and making sure to push back hard against the white media and white societal programming of us, the folks who made their contributions, whose names are going to be written not just in our hearts but also in the stars. This is the time of year that we make sure we remember them. As I've always told you, a people who fail to defend and cherish their advocates will have no advocates. The surest proof that we have learned from the failures of the past generations is for us to do differently than they have done. The other groups, especially if you talk about the Jews and the Holocaust, they'll be the first ones to tell you, never forget. That's their motto, never forget. Too many of us, because we thought we were going to graft ourselves onto the tree of the dominant society, our motto became always forget. Well, we're not playing that game. We know who we are. We know where and what we come from. Our roots run deep and they run strong, and we are not only not ashamed of what we are, we're proud of it. We revel in it. We draw power from it. And we recognize and we give proper veneration to those who put in the work. And don't go downplaying or discounting the importance of this. Dr. Joseph Ben Jochannan said that instead of sitting around waiting for white people to give you a holiday, you take a day. Self-determination is the sine qua non of Black empowerment. To decide for ourselves what will be, what we are going to do on our own, not asking anybody's permission, not trying to get anyone's approval. We're not taking any opinion polls, and we don't care what you think. You don't like it? Good. Power is when everybody screams and yells and says they don't like something, but you go ahead and do it anyway, and there's nothing that can be done about it. It's been a long time since Black folks, especially our people here, have been able to enjoy how that feels. And it's way past time that becomes the new normal again. The white media can try to heap all the accolades they want on their butter biscuit bootlicks and on their bed wenches and other assorted nonsense and garbage and suck-ups that they want. They can go ahead and try to heap all the phony accolades on them, and we're going to credentialize them. They can try that all they want. But as they've seen with Kamala Harris, and as they're going to be seeing with the rest of the congressional black bootlicks, what they're going to be finding is that after they get through having the white media knock itself blue in the face with all of this empty praising and lionizing of these traitors and these turncoats, what they're going to find is that it's the very black grassroots who they've attacked and maligned and said, oh, these guys don't matter. Nobody listens to them. We're the ones who are going to be showing the white media and their black bootlicks who has the real influence.